guys, welcome back to Queen G's Recipes, and today I'm going to be showing you how I like to make my cinnamon chip biscotti cookies. Now, this is the first biscotti recipe on this channel, but if you guys do want to see more variations of it, just let me know in the comments below. So for now, we're just going to go over the ingredients and then we're going to start on our recipe. So first of all, we're going to be needing 1/4 cup of softened butter. Then we'll need 1 tablespoon of lard. So like the Crisco, for example, you shouldn't be replacing it with oil or anything else. I have never actually done that before, but it is suggested not to switch it. I always like to use the Crisco. You'll also be needing 1 whole egg, 1/3 cup of chopped walnuts. Obviously it's optional. If you have any allergies to any nuts, you don't have to include it. Also, what we have here is 1/2 cup of, granulated sugar. We're going to be using 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. We also have some cinnamon chips here. We will be using 3/4 cups of that. Now, if you can't find cinnamon chips, you can definitely use white chocolate chips or any flavored chips of your choice, but it is a cinnamon chip recipe. So what you can do is if you can't find the cinnamon chip and you are going to be using white chocolate chip, for example, you can add another 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon to give it that cinnamon flavor, if that's what you want to do. Also, what we have in here is some flour. We have 1¼ cups of flour. We also have 1 teaspoon of baking powder, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and I have also added 1/8 teaspoon of cinnamon. So let's move on to the next step. Okay, so for this recipe, I do suggest using a standing mixer, but definitely if you don't have one, you can just do it with a spatula and a bowl. It'll just give you a little bit more work. You'll just have to use some more elbow grease, that's all. But it's definitely makeable, and it's definitely your choice. So let's move on to adding in our sugar. Okay. Then we're going to add in our egg. We're going to give that a little mix, probably for about a minute or so, and then we'll add our remaining ingredients. Okay, and now into that we are going to add in our lard. We're also going to add in our softened butter. Make sure that your butter is softened at room temperature. And I also want to let you guys know that you can definitely double this recipe. No problem at all with that. And we're going to add in our vanilla extract. So 1 to 2 teaspoons. I just like to eyeball it because a little extra vanilla won't hurt anyone. And then we're gonna give this another good mix for about a minute or so. Okay, then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so along the way, just make sure that you scrape the sides of your bowl and the bottom of your bowl with a spatula, just to make sure that you are getting all the mixture incorporated properly. Now we're gonna take our flour, baking powder, cinnamon, and salt mixture. We're just gonna give it a little heads up. Whoops. Okay. After doing that, we'll slowly add this into our mixture. Now make sure if you are using a standing mixer that you're using your paddle attachment. And then we'll start mixing this slowly at low speed so you don't get flour all over the place, and continue mixing. Okay, so you want to make sure that you mix your mixture with your flour until it becomes kind of like a cookie dough, actually, and it'll start to kind of form together. And now I'm just going to add in my walnuts and my cinnamon chips, and I'm not going to overmix this, maybe only 10 seconds just to incorporate it, because you don't want your mixture to become very crumbly. You don't want your chips and your walnuts to break too much. So I'm just going to give it a quick mix, and then we'll be ready to place it on our counter, knead it just for a little bit, and start preparing it to place it in the oven. Okay, so overall, this is what your mixture should look like, a nice thick cookie dough. And now we're just going to place it on my counter, kind of form it together, and make sure that you have a baking sheet either lined with some parchment paper, or you can even spray some non-stick spray or a little bit of margarine on it, will be fine too. And please make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's about it. Let's move on. Okay, so what I have here is about 1 tablespoon of just regular flour. I'm just gonna place maybe about a teaspoon just to kind of put the dough together and turn it into a log sort of thing. And if you do double the recipe, just make sure that you split it in 2, because it will make more than 1 log. So don't put too much flour. You don't want your dough to become tough. So I already have my baking sheet. I was gonna place some parchment paper on it, but I decided I'll just put some non-stick spray, and we'll be ready to go. Okay. Sorry, I'm going to show you in here. Okay, so just into a little kind of even log here. And as I said, make sure your oven is preheated to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And we will be baking this for about 25 to 30 minutes. And after that, we'll be removing it from the oven, and we'll be letting them cool for about half an hour. Then we'll be slicing them, and we'll be putting them back into the oven for another 5 to 8 minutes. And then we'll flip them onto the opposite side, and we'll put them in for another 5 to 8 minutes again. But when I reach that process, I will show you and I will let you know. So let me put this on my baking sheet. Okay. Let me just clean up here, and then I will show you what mine looks like. Okay, so our biscotti dough is ready to be placed into our oven. So I will put it in there for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay guys, so my biscotti was in the oven for exactly 23 minutes. And now if you don't want such large biscotti pieces, you can make 2 logs of dough and in 2 separate pans, or in a large pan, and they will make smaller biscotti slices. So that's up to you, but right now we have to let this cool off for about 25 minutes, and then we're going to slice them with a large serrated knife, and then I'll show you the final product, and we'll make our white chocolate drizzle for the topping. Okay guys, so while our biscotti is cooling, we're going to make our white chocolate drizzle. So what I have in this bowl is, you'll need in a microwave bowl 1 teaspoon of lard and 1/4 cup of white chocolate chips. Place that into your microwave for 30 to 45 seconds until it's completely cooled. Make sure you stop every 20 seconds to give it a stir so that you don't scorch your chocolate. All right guys, so my biscotti was cooling for half an hour exactly, and now I just cut it up. You have to make sure you give it the right amount of time to dry up a little bit so that it doesn't break while you cut it with your serrated knife. Now I do suggest, even making the amount of dough that I made today, that you do make 2 logs instead of 1, because it is much more difficult to slice it, especially if you're trying this recipe for the first time. But I successfully was able to chop mine up. Now I'm going to put it back into the oven at 325 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 to 8 minutes, and then I will turn them on the opposite side and do the same thing as I have previously already mentioned, and then we will be ready to drizzle them with our chocolate topping. Alright guys, so my biscotti was baking again once I have sliced them. I left them in for 15 minutes on each side. Then as I said, I rotated them, but I left mine 15 minutes on each side, which equal to half an hour instead of 8 minutes on each side, because my biscottis were a little bit larger, so they needed a little bit more time in the oven. So now I have melted my chocolate and my lard. If you don't want to use the lard in the chocolate, you can use some vegetable oil as well. That'll work too. So I just put it into a piping bag. You can also put it into a small Ziploc or a large Ziploc, whatever you have. So I'm just gonna cut off the tip here so I can drizzle the chocolate, and we are ready to go. So you want to make sure you just let them dry out a little bit, the biscotti, before serving, because they are supposed to be crunchy. So we're just gonna drizzle. Simple as that. I'm going to continue on drizzling the rest of my biscotti, and then I'll be right back. Okay guys, so here you have it, our chocolate drizzled biscotti. Now just make sure that you allow your chocolate to dry. So maybe about half an hour, so you can feel it by touching it if it's dry or not. And that's pretty much it. Really simple to make. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click on the notification bell so that you can receive the updates of my video and be the first to watch them. So take care. Thanks for watching. See you on my next video. Bye.